Hello, and welcome to Exposed News Outlet, where we shed light on topics that matter most. I'm your host, Andrea. Today, we're talking about Jesse Jackson's legacy, his final farewell, and the call to carry his torch forward. But before we do, if I could just ask if you could please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Select the notification bell, hit all, and share this on your social media platforms. And be sure to hit like. Thank you. Now, without further ado, let's get to the video. Reverend Jesse Jackson passed away on February 17th, 2026, at the age of 84, after battling progressive supranuclear palsy, a rare neurological disorder. Who was Reverend Jesse Jackson? Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson Sr. was not just a preacher. He was a warrior, a diplomat, a politician, a negotiator, and one of the greatest voices for justice this country has ever seen. Born October 8, 1941, in Greenville, South Carolina, he grew up segregated South and used every ounce of that pain to fuel a lifetime of fighting for freedom. Early life and rise. Born October 8, 1941 in Greenville, grew up under Jim Crow segregation in the South. Attended North Carolina A&T State University, a historically black university. Joined the Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, a frontline civil rights organization. Became a close associate of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and joined the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the SCLC. Ordained as a Baptist minister, his father was the backbone of his activism. Founded Operation Push, People United to Serve Humanity, in 1971 in Chicago. Founded the Rainbow Coalition in 1984. Later merged into the Rainbow Push Coalition. Standing with Dr. King, the night that changed everything. Now here is a moment that defines the weight Jesse Jackson carried for the rest of his life. On April 4th, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee, Reverend Jesse Jackson was standing on the second floor balcony of Lorraine Motel. He was right there, feet away, when an assassin's bullet struck down the greatest civil rights leader in American history. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was gone, and Jesse Jackson was there to witness it all. April 4th, 1968, Dr. King was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. Jesse Jackson was present on the balcony at the time of the shooting. The assassination occurred during the Memphis sanitation workers' strike. Workers demanding fair wages and dignity. Jackson was deeply impacted, carried the trauma and the mission of that moment for the rest of his life. He became one of the primary voices to continue King's unfinished work. Quote, "I was there," end quote, he said many times, and that presence defined his purpose. After Dr. King was taken from us, Jesse Jackson didn't run. He stood up. He stepped forward. And for the next 5 decades, he carried that torch. Let me show you this clip of Jesse Jackson reflecting on the night MLK was assassinated. The archival footage.
It's easy to forget just how young the Reverend Jesse Jackson was back then.
But you couldn't have been more than 23, 24 years old then, right?
24. Back when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was his mentor.
This is one of those special kind of moments.
In April of 1968, Jackson, only 26 and living in Chicago, was summoned along with other aides to Dr. King's home in Atlanta. He was in a grave mood, attacked for speaking out against the Vietnam War, and even taking heat from other African-American leaders. He told the group,
"Maybe I could just quit. Maybe I've done as much as I can do in 13 years. Maybe I could just fast to the point of death."
But first, he'd go to Memphis to rally support for sanitation workers there. Jackson says Dr. King was in no mood to speak on the night of April 3rd, but found the energy to give what turned out to be his last speech.
"And I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord."
I saw ministers crying. And ministers and film directors don't cry very much.
The next day, April 4th, at the Lorraine Motel, Dr. King teased Jackson about his casual attire before dinner.
I said, "Doc, the prerequisite for eating is an appetite, not a tie." He said, "You're crazy." We laughed.
Moments later, as Dr. King, Reverend Jackson, and others stood on the motel balcony,
He raised it, pow! He raised up. But it hit him and severed his tie. He back against the wall, and he just like out of it.
When you saw your friend and mentor in that condition, what was going through your head?
I was traumatized. It was full of pain and anger and sorrow and desperation and many emotions at the same time.
The white people do not know it, but the white people's best friend is dead.
50 years later, for the Reverend Jesse Jackson recalling that terrible night, the pain is still raw.
Every time the scab comes off, the wound is fresh again.
But his resolve, then and now,
But what I was clear on, we could not let one bullet kill the whole movement. I was clear, if you're playing the big game and the best player gets hurt, you can't forfeit the game. You can't run away, you got to keep fighting.
Jesse Jackson and the Civil Rights Movement. People need to understand the Civil Rights Movement was not a moment. It was a decades-long battle with setbacks, sacrifices, and bloodshed. And Jesse Jackson was in the middle of it all. Fought for our voting rights, economic justice, and desegregation throughout the 1960s and 70s. Organized voter registration drives that brought millions of Black Americans to the polls. He led marches, sit-ins, and boycotts across the South, challenged corporate America to hire more Black employees and do business with Black-owned companies, negotiated the release of hostages and political prisoners internationally, including a U.S. pilot shot down in Syria in 1984, was a bridge between the streets and the halls of power, known for getting results. His signature phrase, quote, "I am somebody," end quote, chanted at rallies and in schools, became a defining affirmation for generations. Quote, "Keep hope alive," end quote, became his rallying cry for people told to give up. He fought for the Voting Rights Act, a law that was hard won, The blood of marchers on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama in 1965. And he never stopped defending it. Let me show you this clip.
Linda Blackman Lowry was there, a young girl in a crowd of hundreds. A march that changed lives and history.
That was more traumatic than people will ever know.
She was 14 on March 7, 1965, the day police turned on the scores crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
There was this sound of gunshots. The gas burned your throat, your eyes, you couldn't hear. I saw my 11-year-old sister, Joanne. She wasn't supposed to be in somebody's arms, looking like she was dead.
Bloody Sunday was a turning point in the civil rights movement. It was a driving force in the passage of the Voting Rights Act. All these years on, for all that has changed, Lowry worries about the legacy.
People, black, white, all race, creeds, colors, and ethnic groups, the majority of you are not doing anything for yourself to enhance what people did for you back then.
She's pained by what she sees happening today, the apathy of young voters.
The right to vote came with a price people's lives and people blood, sweat, and tears. The pain that people still feel from what they did. And the fact that you're not doing anything to help yourself, it hurts.
Memories she's sharing, a struggle she hasn't forgotten, but worries the next generation has. Alex Sands, The Associated Press, Selma, Alabama.
1984. The year I was born and the year Jesse Jackson made history. Now this one is personal for me because 1984 is the year I was born. And in that same year, Reverend Jesse Jackson did something that no black man had ever done before. He ran for president of the United States and made the entire country pay attention. 1984, Jesse Jackson ran for the Democratic presidential nomination, only the second black candidate in history to run a nationally competitive campaign. He won 3.5 million primary votes and carried 5 states and the District of Columbia. His campaign was powered by a massive voter registration drive. He brought new voters into the Democratic Party by the millions. Gave one of the most celebrated speeches in convention history at the 1984 Democratic National Convention. Spoke of a rainbow coalition uniting black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, poor and working class voters. Challenged the Democratic Party to take seriously the concerns of its most loyal voters. Proved that a black man could compete and win states in a presidential primary. 1988, he came back even stronger. 4 years later, in 1988, Jesse Jackson ran again. And this time, he didn't just show up. He showed out. He became a genuine frontrunner for the Democratic nomination, something that shocked a nation that still wasn't ready to fully accept the idea of a black president. 1988, Jackson ran again, and this time won 7 primary contests and finished second in the delegate count. Won over 6.9 million primary votes, more than double his 1984 total. Carried states like Michigan, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alabama, was a legitimate contender for the nomination, not a protest candidate, a frontrunner. His 1988 campaign paved the way for the future black candidates, including President Barack Obama. At the Democratic National Convention in Atlanta, he again delivered a powerful landmark speech. He didn't win the nomination, but he changed what was possible for him. He planted seeds in 1984 and 1980 that Barack Obama would harvest in 2000. You cannot understand the first black president without first understanding Jesse Jackson's presidential campaigns. Let me show you this clip.
Jesse Jackson will give silence tonight.
To feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to house the homeless, to teach the illiterate, to provide jobs for the jobless, and to choose the human race over the nuclear race. We are gathered here this week to nominate a candidate and adopt a platform which will expand, unify, direct, and inspire our party and the nation to fulfill this mission. My constituency is the desperate, the damned, the disinherited, the disrespected, and the despised. They are restless and seek relief. They have voted in record numbers. They have invested the faith, hope, and trust that they have in us. The Democratic Party must send them a signal that we care. I pledge my best not to let them down. There is the call of conscience, redemption, expansion, healing, and unity. Leadership must heed the call of conscience, redemption, expansion, healing, and unity, for they are the key to achieving our mission. Time is neutral and does not change things. With courage and initiative, leaders change things. No generation can choose the age or circumstance in which it is born, but through leadership, it can choose to make the age in which it is born an age of enlightenment, an age of jobs and peace and justice. Only leadership, that intangible combination of gifts, discipline, information, circumstance, courage, timing, will, and divine inspiration, can lead us out of the crisis in which we find ourselves. Leadership can mitigate the misery of our nation. Leadership can part the waters and lead our nation in the direction of the promised land. Leadership can lift the boats stuck at the bottom. I've had the rare opportunity to watch 7 men and then 2 pour out their souls, offer their service, and heed the call of duty to direct the course of our nation. There is a proper season for everything. There is a time to sow and a time to reap. There's a time to compete and a time to cooperate. I ask for your vote on the first ballot as a vote for a new direction for this party and this nation. A vote of conviction, a vote of conscience. But I will be proud to support the nominee of this convention for the presidency of the United States of America. Excitement. We must not save the world and lose our souls. We should never short circuit enforcing the Voting Rights Act at every level. When one of us rise, all of us will rise. Justice is a way out. Peace is a way out. We should not act as if nuclear weaponry is negotiable and debatable. In this world in which we live, we dropped the bomb on Japan and felt guilty. But in 1984, other folks also got bombs. This time we dropped the bomb 6 minutes later. We too will be destroyed. It's not about dropping the bomb on somebody. It's about dropping a bomb on everybody. We must choose to develop minds over guided missiles and think it out and not fight it out. It's time for a change.
The memorial. Chicago says goodbye to a giant in a way that showed exactly how much this man meant to us all. The public celebration of life was held on Friday, March 6, 2026, at the House of Hope, a 10,000-seat megachurch of Chicago's historic South Side. Thousands gathered from across the country and around the world. The crowd opened with the chant, "I am somebody," end quote, and "Keep hope alive." His most iconic phrases. 3 former presidents attended: Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden. And former Vice President Kamala Harris delivered remarks as well. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson spoke. Reverend Al Sharpton delivered a powerful tribute. Jennifer Hudson, a Chicago native and Grammy-winning legend, performed Sam Cooke's "A Change Gonna Come," and was legendary, by the way. Gospel legends B.B. Winans and Pastor Marvin Winans also performed. Phenomenal. NBA Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas, a Chicago native, gave a tribute that brought the crowd to its feet. And actor-producer Tyler Perry were in attendance. NBA Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas acknowledged 5 presidents in attendance: Obama, Biden, Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Kamala Harris. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson opened the tribute, reminding everyone that Jesse Jackson belonged to Chicago and Chicago belonged to him. He called Jackson a brilliant strategist, master negotiator, and organizing savant. Let me show you this clip of Mayor Brandon Johnson.
But on behalf of my wife and my entire family, I say thank you for the care that you have shown us. From one first family to another, we love you. By evidence in this audience, the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, and the world, the country, agrees. One quick story. Reverend Jackson may have been the most competitive individual that I've ever met. So a few years ago, we were wrapping up a meeting on the west side of Chicago at Reverend Johnny Miller's church. And Zeke, we started talking about football. And at the time, Lamar Jackson was on his way to becoming the MVP of the National Football League. And I looked at Reverend and I said, now there's a Jackson that's really making a name for himself. And you know, Reverend did not like that. And he looked at me and he said, you know, I played that position. And he said, you know, I was better than Lamar Jackson. Zeke, true story. He said, he might be taller, faster, and stronger, but I'm better than him. And I said, Reverend, well, that doesn't leave too many more categories to determine greatness. And I said, in all seriousness, what makes you better? He said, because of my instincts. See, in sports, you hear about how athletes have a good feel for the game. Something innate that can't be coached, that allows them to read the field and make split-second decisions that ultimately position their team to win. The Reverend will be remembered certainly as an incredible oratory champion, but to the people in Chicago, we knew him as a brilliant strategist, a master negotiator, an organizing savant. His instincts. See, he didn't shy away from the painful realities of racism and hatred, but he had a God-given ability to bring people in, to encourage them in, and to enlist them into the fight of our collective liberation. It was his instincts that understood that labor and faith were one and the same, as Dr. King prophesied. It was his instincts to stand up against school closures and the shuttering of mental health clinics. It was his instincts that led protests down Michigan Avenue when a boy's life was taken by a police officer and then government decided to cover it up. It was his instincts. It was his instincts to run in '84 and '88, but not in '92, to make way for somebody in the deep South and a brother on the South Side to become president of these United States. It was his instincts.
Former Vice President Kamala Harris, herself a barrier breaker, as the first Black and South Asian woman to serve as VP, honored the man whose work helped make her career possible. Let me show you this clip of Kamala Harris at the tribute.
On behalf of Doug and my family, we pray with you as we did a couple weeks ago in your home, and we thank you. I thank you. You know, so let me just say, I predicted a lot about what's happening right now. I'm not into saying I told you so, but we did see it coming. But what I did not predict is that we would not have Jesse Jackson with us right now to help us get through this. And this afternoon has been such a beautiful remembrance of his spirit, his life, and his faith. And in a way that Reverend Al talked about it and so many others have, I do think of this afternoon as what it is doing for me to renew my faith in what is possible, fueled by the hope that Jesse Jackson so often reminded us of. I'm reminded of a passage in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 7. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. And so from a young age, we know that Reverend Jackson saw that the doors had been closed to the millions of people across our nation and throughout the world who were otherwise so deserving. And they were doors, of course, to opportunity, to equity, to justice, to freedom. And so he dedicated his life, as we all know, to breaking down those barriers. So when we are speaking of these doors, I will share with you that as a child, I was raised that when you see a closed door, you must knock and wait to be invited in. What life has taught me is that if that invitation is not offered, and if that door remains shut, even after repeated attempts to knock on said door, sometimes you have no choice but just to kick that door open. Reverend Jackson was impatient. He did not waste time waiting. Even when the doors in front of him were barred and bolted, even if those on the other side hesitated or even ignored him, he always devised a way through. Jesse Jackson was a strategist. He was one of the most effective community and political organizers of our time. And he was the founder, I think most would agree, the founder of the modern progressive coalition. Think about the work that he did. In addition to the strength of his spirit and his determination, the leadership of Jesse Jackson was defined by his vision, dare I say his ambition, to tap into what otherwise had been untapped in terms of the potential of a coalition of seemingly different people who could be brought together around shared values and ideals and experience. That's what Jesse Jackson did. He modeled that for so many of us. Over the past half century, that coalition strategy, his methodology, has been the heartbeat for so many movements about progress in our country. Those movements born out of struggle, but resulting in progress. Think about, and it was mentioned, the women leaders that he elevated, like the self-described colored girls, who have been a driving force behind so many campaigns that have been about freedom and justice. Throughout his life, Reverend Jackson reminded us that the many fights for freedom are interconnected. He saw not only the interconnection, but the interdependence of the various struggles for justice and dignity on behalf of Black Americans, Native and Asian Americans, Latino, LGBTQ Americans, and Americans with disabilities. That was Jesse's rainbow, and he continued to grow it. He gave us the language, the rainbow, to understand, as has been said, the beauty that comes after the storm when we see what is possible and what can be unburdened by what has been. As he once said, when a barrier falls for one of the locked out, it opens the doors for all. And that is what he told me, and what he taught me, and how he inspired me. I was a student at Howard University, you know, when Jesse Jackson was one of the leaders of the anti-apartheid movement. And me and my classmates would go out on the mall every weekend and protest, looking at Jesse Jackson as a model of what that movement should and could have been. I was a law student then in 1988 when Jesse Jackson decided to run again. I was the first black woman elected district attorney of San Francisco. I was the first black woman elected district attorney in the state of California in 2004, when I created one of the first in the nation initiatives as a prosecutor that was about getting jobs and counseling to those who had been in the criminal justice system. And at the time, the powers that be told me I was not supposed to, doing that. They said, why are you letting people out of jail when you're supposed to put them back in? Jesse Jackson spent a lot of time in the Bay Area, many of you may know. I saw Butch Wing here. And Butch, together with Jesse Jackson, would visit with me during those earliest days of my elected career to give me the support and the confidence and the initiative to think about how, in a position such as being DA, I could continue the idea about what it means to build coalition around a group of people whose dignity must be seen and the resources that must be put into them. Jesse Jackson, from my first elected position to when I ran with Joe Biden for Vice President of the United States, and when I became the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, always told me and convinced me that everything that we were doing is possible. And so I just want to share what I brought today. I brought with me two momentums from Jesse Jackson's campaign that I have saved since I was a student. So one is this button that reads Jesse Jackson 88. The other, some of you who were around at the time may remember, is this button. I will read it to you, and pastors, please forgive me. It reads as follows, all caps. Damn straight, exclamation point. It's time for a black presidential candidate. That was a Jesse Jackson pin from those days. And just a beautiful example of his determination, his sense of humor, but his ability to see what can be, unburdened by what has been. And I thank you, Jesse Jackson, for your service to our nation and the world. Well done, good and faithful servant. Well done. Thank you.
President Clinton gave Jackson the Presidential Medal of Freedom in the year 2000. At the memorial, he was raw and honest, saying, Jesse Jackson made him a better president. Quote, we did not always agree, but I'll tell you one thing. He made me a better president. He knew that change came from the outside in and sometimes from the inside out. Former President Joe Biden, who himself built his career alongside civil rights leaders, called on those in attendance to be what Jesse Jackson always called us to be, a margin of hope. Let me show you this clip of Joe Biden.
Feel really small. Makes you feel really small. And you know, when I moved from Wilmington to Claymont, Delaware, a world-class town, I was surprised. I remember being dropped off at the little Catholic school I went to, 3rd grade. And I watched this bus go by every day. And it passed, I was on the call of Philadelphia Pike connecting Wilmington and Philadelphia. And it passed the turn to the big high school, Claymont High School. And the little Catholic school I went to, Holy Rosie, was right on the corner. remember saying to my mom, "Mom, why does that happen?" She said, "Well, black kids aren't allowed to go to school with white kids in Delaware." And, you know, the more I thought about that, I thought to myself, how can that work? How can that be right? And so, as strange as it sounds, I got involved in being concerned about it. I didn't know a damn thing about the civil rights movement. I was going into the 4th grade. But you know what's right and you know what's wrong and you feel it.
And then, the man who perhaps more than anyone else represents what Jesse Jackson's sacrifice made possible. President Barack Obama took the stage. The crowd erupted. He spoke about legacy of hope at a time when hope feels hard to hold on to. He was not afraid to speak truth to what we are facing right now. Let me show you this clip of Obama's powerful speech.
It's good to be home. I love you back. The book of Isaiah. Where are you at? Now, see, I believe in the Constitution. The book of Isaiah God is looking for a messenger to guide a hardened and resistant people. And the Lord asks, whom shall I send? And who will go with us? To which Isaiah replies, here I am, Lord. Send me. To Mother Jackson and the Jackson family, to President and Mrs. Biden, President and Secretary Clinton, Vice President Harris, Pastor Dates, my old friend, though he looking good, Reverend Meeks, Reverend Jenkins. It is an honor to join you today to celebrate the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson, a man who, when the poor and the dispossessed needed a champion, and a country needed healing, stepped forward again and again and again and said, send me.
Reverend Al Sharpton, founder of the National Action Network and one of the most recognizable civil rights voices alive today, delivered a tribute to President Bill Clinton. Quote, we did not always agree. That was part eulogy, part battle cry. He likened Jackson's death to a call to action for everyone in that room and everyone watching. And then Chicago's own Jennifer Hudson, Oscar and Grammy winner, took the stage and sang Sam Cooke's civil rights anthem, A Change Gonna Come. There was not a dry eye in that building. It was stunning. It was a beautiful tribute. Let me show you this clip of Jennifer Hudson.
honey, ever since. It's been a long, 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 a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Well, I go to my brother.
Here is where I need you to hear me. Jesse Jackson didn't fight this hard so that we could sit on the sidelines. Every speaker at that memorial said the same thing in different ways. The torch has been passed. It is our turn now. It is your turn now. He ran for president twice and didn't win, but paved the road for Barack Obama to walk down. He stood on that balcony in Memphis when Dr. King was killed, and instead of breaking, he carried the mission forward another 58 years. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's and a rare neurological disease, and he kept coming into the office until last year. He communicated through hand signals. He refused to stop. So what is your excuse? Please register to vote and bring at least 5 people with you or more. Know your history. Pass it to your children, your community. Show up for local elections, school board meetings, city council. Speak up when you see injustice, name it. Support Black-owned businesses. Economic justice was central to Jackson's fight. Stay connected. Please subscribe, share, engage, and be informed. The legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson is not a museum piece. It is a living mandate. Keep hope alive. I want to thank you for watching till the end. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my podcast channel. Be sure to hit the notification bell and select all. And share it once again on your platforms to get the message out and spread the word of hope, civil rights, and equality. Thank you. As always, be kind to yourselves and be kind to others. Stay safe.